Welcome to another conversation on faith and sports. My name is Paul Putz. I'm the director of the Faith and Sports Institute at Baylor's Truett Seminary, and today I am excited to have with us Mark Wible. Now, Mark is a Waco area pastor. He is the chaplain for the Baylor men's basketball team, one of several chaplains, and the founder of Hoops for Hope. Mark, so glad to have you with us.
It's really great to be here. Thank you so much for the privilege of being able to talk with you today.
Can we start with your faith journey? Tell us how you came to know and follow Jesus.
Well, I grew up in a home of faith. My mom and dad were both saved and introduced me to Christ early on. Always was in church in Fort Worth, Texas. At age 9, as a 9-year-old, I really wasn't listening to anything that the preacher was saying, but at the end, a spirit of conviction came on me, and I went and spoke to my parents and said, something's going on inside of my heart, and they took me home on December 1st, 1963, and introduced me to Jesus. I prayed and asked Jesus Christ to come into my life. So really not a flashy testimony, but a faithful testimony. God has been faithful throughout my life, and my generation is a generation of movement. So in high school, we were in the Jesus movement, so I walked through the Jesus movement. There was the charismatic movement, then there was the third wave movement, then there were all other sorts of movements that came that I have been a part of throughout all of my life. There was the homeschool movement, the home church movement, the home birth movement. I mean, there were all kind of movements. I've followed after Christ since that day that I asked Jesus to come into my life. Really never had any doubts. There's always been struggles,
Yeah.
and I've been able to see the Lord through good times and bad times. I have been hired for jobs that I wasn't qualified for. I've been released from jobs that I was qualified for. I've been turned down for promotions. I have seen disappointments, and I've seen great joys. And the one constant through it all has been the faithfulness of God. And so been married since 1980, and the Lord has blessed me with a wonderful wife, 4 kids, four spouses of those kids, and at currently 10 grandchildren. And so it's been a tremendous faith journey. God has been faithful through it all.
Let's talk about the sports journey then. We're talking faith and sports. You've been following Jesus since you're 9. You're growing up in Texas. They love their sports here too. So how did you get connected to sports, and what role has that played?
Yeah, so when I was young, my dad was on staff at a TCU, and we lived just 2 blocks from all the sports complex, so I was the ball boy for the basketball team, the bat boy for the baseball team. I was at every football game. Sports were huge. At the same time, in that era, churches had church leagues, and so we had church league basketball, baseball, and track. So the earliest I can remember is age 8, being involved in basketball specifically. That was the one that really captured my heart. So grew up playing basketball, a little bit of baseball, a little bit of track, but then really concentrated on basketball once I got into junior high, then got into high school. Had an opportunity to go to a little college out in Canyon, Texas, and play basketball out there. So sports was something that was just in my DNA. My senior year in high school, my high school coach quit 4 games into the season, came in and announced on a Wednesday that he had just resigned, and they were looking for a coach, but until they found a coach, that I was in charge. So at age 17, I was in charge of varsity, JV, and freshman teams. And it got into my blood just like that. It was like, oh, I like this. And so started coaching some little teams in college, got out of college, coached for a couple of years in Amarillo, was able to go overseas and be a player coach of a basketball team in Germany, came to Baylor, was a coach at Baylor for a year. Then I coached for several years about 25 years in the private and public school sector here in Waco. So sports has been, from my earliest recollections, sports has been very important to me.
That high school team, 17-year-old player coach.
Yeah.
What was the record? Did y'all do okay?
Well, fortunately, I only got to coach 3 practices because on the way to a game, we were literally on the way to our first game that I was preparing to coach for, and a guy drove up, got on the bus, and said, "I'm your new coach." So I sat with him and told him, here's what we do. Here's what you can expect. And of course, I made sure that I never came out of the game, that it was important that I play the whole game. So
pass the baton well. That's great. So basketball, such a key part of your experience, your coaching and your leading there. And that's connected to probably a role that a lot of people know you for, which is that you've served as a chaplain for the Baylor men's basketball team. Tell us how that happened and what that's meant for you.
Well, that's kind of a funny story. So Baylor went through a pretty trying time back in the early 2000s where there was a scandal that went on. And during that time, Baylor was without a university chaplain. And I had a friend that was the interim university chaplain, and he had talked to me, said he was applying for the job, and if he got it, his goal was to put a volunteer sports chaplain on every team, with every team. And he said, if I get the job, would you be willing to be the men's basketball chaplain? I said, let me pray about that. Yeah, I'd be glad to do that. So going through the summer, that was the summer that the scandal all broke. And one day I'm sitting at my house in early August, and he calls me and he says, look, I don't know if I'm going to get the chaplain's job or not, but Baylor is hiring a new basketball coach. If you'll turn on the TV, his guy's name is Scott Drew. He said, Scott won't know any different. You can just show up tomorrow at his office and introduce yourself as the Baylor men's basketball chaplain and see what happens. So Scott's first day on the job, I literally walked in, knocked on his door and said, hey, I'm Mark Wible. I'm the chaplain of the Baylor men's basketball team. Well, he was like, great, you can come on in. Listen, I want you to do a weekly Bible study with the coaches, a weekly Bible study with the players, a weekly Bible study with the coaches' wives, a weekly Bible study with the players' girlfriends. I want you at every practice. And I'm like, whoa, Scott, this is a volunteer position. I have a full-time job. And he goes, oh, well, what can you give me? I said, well, I'll give you what I can. And so that's how it came about. I literally just took the opportunity to walk in and proclaim myself the chaplain, and he believed it.
Oh, that's great. Can you give us what's a highlight of your time? You've been walking alongside for a while with this program. It's gone from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, and you've been a consistent presence. So maybe just give us something that stands out to you as you think back.
You know, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is the faithfulness of Scott Drew. To a greater mission than just winning basketball games. The highlight to me has been to see him literally being more concerned about the spiritual development, the growth of the person of each player and each coach than it is about winning basketball. Now, believe me, he is extremely competitive. He wants to win basketball games. But early on, we were in a losing streak, and it was a frustrating time. And I remember talking with him, and he said, Pastor, the one thing is if we don't win another game, as long as these kids can know Jesus as their Savior, we will have had a successful season. So that was a behind the scenes highlight, watching young men come in and really either have minimal or no faith, and see them come to faith, see them be baptized. I've seen multiple baptisms of our student athletes. That has been a tremendous highlight. And obviously, winning the national championship was an extreme highlight just from a competitive standpoint. But the relationship with the athletes before and after that has just been so rewarding. Just to hear, I had one just the other day who was saying, I'm so glad I came to Baylor because it was here that I met Jesus. And so, again, those are behind the scenes things that not a lot of people get a chance to see or hear and know about. I've had a front row seat to it since 2002.
Okay, let's talk about Hoops for Hope a little bit. This is such an important part of your mission and calling in life and what you've built up here in Waco. So let's get the story first. How did your vision for Hoops for Hope start? Okay,
well, as has already been established, basketball was a huge part of my life. And once you're in coaching, you never get coaching out of you. You can get out of coaching, but you never get coaching out of you. And so as a church in 2004, we were looking for a new and innovative way to create a mission point for members of the church to be able to get involved. And normally mission trips are either medical, street evangelism, vacation Bible school, construction, or just kids ministry, something like that. So we went on a fact-finding trip to North Africa with the International Mission Board, with the Southern Baptist Convention. And we were sitting with a team of 5 couples, 10 people. And they were saying, we need somebody to come do gardening. We need to have somebody come do tea and art events, and somebody to come do some business seminars. And I'm sitting there going, I don't do any of that. The last guy said, I need somebody to come do a basketball camp. And I was like, that I can do. So came home, put together a team, went over in early 2005, and did a basketball camp. And it was exhilarating for me. I was like, this coupled my love for sports, my love for mission, my love for Jesus, my love for people. And it put it all together. So I came home and I was regaling my wife with such success stories, and she said, well, that's great. You'll go halfway around the world to tell people about Jesus. Why don't you go down the street to the local elementary school and tell people about Jesus? And I was like, duly noted. And so we went down to Dean Highland Elementary, put on a camp there. Another church heard about it and asked us to come to a camp for their elementary school. Did one there. Another church heard about it, went and did one there. North Africa called back and said, would you come back? Then all of a sudden I got a call from Thailand. They had heard about what we were doing. Don't know how that exactly happened. But all of a sudden we found out that there was a niche for what we were doing, the way that we were doing it. Most often sports ministries are basketball is they'll play exhibition games and give their testimony. Our model is a little different than that. Our model is one that we take a group of 6, 7, 8 coaches, and we stay for a week. And we put on camps in the morning and the afternoon. We'll bring in, 50 in the morning, 50 in the afternoon, and we'll develop a relationship with the kids. We don't play games. We don't do anything like that. We just build a relationship through fundamental coaching and then talking about things that are important in life. And so the next thing I know, I'm starting to get people interested in, hey, I really want to go on a trip. So we began to expand. So the first few years were 1, 2, 3 trips, 4, 5 trips to up until 2020 when COVID hit. We were sending out 14 teams during the summer, and that was just an amazing thing. We've been on 5 continents, over 24 countries. It's just been an amazing thing. So that's how Hoops for Hope was birthed. Was really just through wanting to try as a church to provide the church with an opportunity to get people out of the stands and onto the court to go and do the work of the ministry. In 2015, the Lord was kind of giving me a year in review. How are you doing with Acts 1:8? You'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. And I was like, oh, Lord, we've got the uttermost parts of the earth covered. And we've been to Florida, we've been to California, we've been to Boston, we've been to all these places. So I've got Judea and Samaria covered. And the Lord said, well, what about Waco? And I said, well, I do that one camp a year. And he said, what if you did something weekly? So 11 years ago, we came up with this idea. So we have a thing we call Hoops Huddle, and it is under the umbrella of Hoops for Hope, but it is a weekly 19 session starting in September, ending in April, where we bring in neighborhood kids, and we'll do an hour of basketball and then 30 minutes of character development, scripture, Bible study it's designed 3rd through 7th grade. We have 5 different books of curriculum. We start out with the basics with the 3rd graders. We end up in the 6th grade year, they walk through the book of Philippians, learning how to study the Bible. So it's an evangelism and a discipleship program. So that's kind of how it started. I had no model. It was just kind of let's learn. We've learned probably a lot from our mistakes than we have from our successes. And let's not do that again. Let's try this.
You mentioned there a key Bible verse that's driven all this work that you've done. What are some other maybe mission values and vision that you've held close as you've responded to God's call and built this out?
Well, the Great Commission is go and make disciples, and go into all the world as you are going, make those disciples. And so I would say the 3 main core vision values that we would have, we exist to be an arm of the local church. Our great desire is to see the gospel of Jesus Christ preached to the nations, in the neighborhood and the nations. That's our great desire. And so our vision is to use the ball, a basketball, to put a ball in the hand of every kid that comes to our camps, which they go home with as as our gift to them, free gift to them. But our vision is to use that ball as a way to open the door through excellent coaching, encouraging coaching, and enthusiastic coaching, to open the door for, okay, we've taught you over the last 2.5 hours how to dribble better, pass better, shoot better, rebound better, all these different things. But we really have something more on our hearts that we want to talk to you about. And what we really want to talk to you is about the fact that you have a purpose. There's a purpose for your life, and that purpose is relationships. And we talk about relationships. So, but the key relationship being a relationship with God. We talk about there's a plan for your life. We talk about there's a part that you have to play. You don't have to wait until you're 20, 30, 40 years old before you're important. You are important now as a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old. You have a part to play. And then we talk about there's a place for you. Jesus said, I go away to prepare a place for you, that where I am, there you may also be. And that's the heart of everything that we do, is to get them to understand that there is a place for them that Jesus has prepared for them. So we say, there's a place for you, and then our final day we talk about there's a power for you. There's a power for you to live the Christian life. So the vision is, the vision value, I would say, is to get a ball in the hands to open the door for us to speak the gospel. The second core value we have is, we can talk about going, but if we don't have any goers, there's no point in going, because we can't go without the goers. And so the first aspect is get the gospel into kids' lives, but the second aspect is to get people out of the stands and onto the court. America is such a sports-saturated society.
Yeah.
And what we've found is so many people have grown up with sports, played sports, coached sports, but they get out of the high school, they get out of college, now they're into their early 20s, early 30s, up into the 40s, and there's no way for them to really mesh that faith and sport.
Yeah.
And so our coaching philosophy, we've had people as young as 14, and we've had people as old as 73 go on mission trips. And so the second value is that we would simply say, or the second vision is that we would simply say to the church, we have an opportunity for you to get individuals out of the pews and onto the court. Mm-hmm. And then the third one is really just as the church. So the individual child, the individual coach, but then as a church to empower the church for missions that we desire to be able to say. So many people say, well, I can't do the other things that I've, vacation Bible school, street preaching, those guys, I can't do that. Well, we're saying, but you can do this. And I will tell you, the most common thing that I get from our trip participants is, I had no idea that I would be able to express my love for Jesus in a basketball setting once I got to be my age, or once I stopped playing. And so those are the three main vision values that I would say carry us. Mm.
The thing that strikes me is, I've heard you talk about Hoops for Hope, is how it's rooted in the local church. And to me, that's beautiful, because there's some great sports ministries. You're involved with them. I'm involved with them. They're parachurch, right? They do good work. But what you're envisioning is local church, get people in that church involved in the community and across the globe, and build a program around that. We hear a lot about how youth sports takes people away from the church, and there's a tension sometimes. And what I love about what you're doing is you're saying, let's bring these together, and let's actually use sports to build and strengthen the local church.
100%. And with that, if we are going to follow Scripture that says you will be my witnesses, it doesn't say you might or you can, it says you will be my witness in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth, that it's not an option. We tend to pick, option A, I'll be Jerusalem, or option D, I'll go to the uttermost parts of the earth. The way we structure it is, we empower churches, we empower the local church to say, we're gonna encourage you to be invested here. But hey, guess what? We have missionaries in XYZ country. I have a church that we work with down in Belton. They have a missionary on the ground in Peru. They heard of the concept, they did something locally, and they said, let's take this to our missionary, not to Hoops for Hope's missionary, but to our local missionary. They have been doing that for years, and they'll see 200 to 300 kids a year reached in this little tiny community in Peru. So it's. I don't want you to come support Hoops for Hope. It's Hoops for Hope is an arm of the local church. That is the big thing. We are not it. We are an arm of what God has called us to be a part of, and that is the local church, because the local church is called to be local and translocal, to go across the world. That's the call that Jesus has given us. And so that's our goal, is to root everything in a local church and have that local church then support. And we've had people around the United States that are doing that. Got one for the first time this year out in California. They have a local missionary in Egypt, and they've taken a couple of their pastors on a trip. They're trained, and now they're recruiting for their trip to go to their ministry. We've never been there. We don't know anything about what they're doing, but they are empowered with our model to go. And now there will be that church that is going and enabling people to get out of their pews to go on trips. So it is all rooted in the local church.
Okay, switch focus a little bit here. I'm a pastor's kid, so I know when you do mission and you're engaging in work and trying to spread the gospel, things don't always go as planned, right? There's some messiness, there's tension, there's struggle to respond to what you feel God is calling you to. Talk to us about the challenges for Hoops for Hope. Over these last 20 years, as it's been built up, what are those challenges and struggles that you've faced? Yeah.
Well, the first one was COVID. Here we are, 2025, and we're still recovering from the effects of COVID. So that was a huge one. And I would simply say to anybody that would be listening, don't get frustrated. Just understand that the world is even further behind than we are from advancing through COVID. But like I said, we had 14 trips scheduled to go out during the summer that COVID hit, 2020. We had one trip go out. So that was a huge momentum breaker. And as you know, in ministry, you have to build momentum. And once you build momentum, then it has a little bit of self-sustaining. But the other thing that we know is once momentum is broken and you lose it, it doesn't automatically just come back. People that are your leaders, people that are willing to go on trips, they find other venues, other avenues. Obviously, finances are a big issue because everything costs more now. And so one of the struggles we face is being able to afford to get people on mission, where airfare is up like 25, 30%. So, and that's, so those are real, tangible, struggles that we've found. We've had the inconveniences of lost luggage. One time we were doing 2 trips simultaneously in North Africa, and 7 of the 21 bags didn't make it, with half of our basketballs. So we had to on the fly figure out, okay, how do we do a camp with half of our equipment? What do we do? And so the key word, and I would say this to anybody who's wanting to do missions, the key word is flexibility. Blessed are the flexible, for they won't get bent out of shape. That is the key word. And so you've got to remain flexible. So, lost luggage, missed flights, canceled flights, delayed flights that make you miss another flight, improper paperwork, all these different things that are seemingly minor, but they become major when you're trying to take the gospel. We've faced illness and injury. We've had people in the emergency rooms. We've had broken bones. There have been struggles on that. And then always in any trip, whenever you travel internationally and you deal with people have ideas and set expectations. And there's going to be some discouragements, spiritual warfare. We had a godly woman who we were in a closed country, and we were getting ready to start our first camp, and I looked over and she was just in tears, and she was so, it was so oppressive. We had to stop. The group stopped, and we were able to to gather around and to pray over. So spiritual, I mean, there's physical things, there's personal things, there's personnel things, but then there's huge spiritual opposition that would come against you. And then there, I mean, just all the different miscellaneous things. People forget things in medicines or flat tires. I mean, just little things. So anything from little inconveniences to major things, you can expect that. But that's the deal with going into mission trips, is when you understand flexibility and understand God is in control, that you turn everything over to the Lord every time something happens. Is, okay, Lord, how am I supposed to respond in this situation? I mean, we were in a place one time and we had 95 kids, and we showed up to the gym and they said they had two backboards and 2 goals, Okay, great. So we show up, they had 2 backboards, but only one of them had a goal. So we got 95 kids and one goal, So, I mean, and they're sitting there and it's like, okay, what do you do? So those are some struggles that you have to overcome. Yeah. Is expect the unexpected, prepare for the unexpected, but always understand that there's going to be something that happens that you're not prepared for. Yeah. So,
how about for those people who might think, well, I'm not qualified. I'm not a coach. I'm not an expert. How can I go and teach basketball? Tell us how you've helped people along to understand, no, you can do this. You can be part of this.
And that is one of the biggest struggles, is the misconception of, oh, I've got to either be a John Wooden or a Scott Drew to be able to coach and go do that, or I've got to be a Michael Jordan or a Caitlin Clark to be able to go and do that. I've got to be somebody like that to go and do that. And, early on in our doing this, we really found out that there was so much interest in people without coaching skill, and yet they really desired to go and be a part of what we were doing. I would say what we have done, our model is that we're going to put you in a position to succeed. And if you have a love for Jesus and a love for kids and a love for missions, then we believe there's a place for you, as long as you can travel well. I mean, you got to be able to travel well, because there can be some brutal travel days. But what we do is that we have structured our camps are made up of 4 parts. First part is mass ball handling. So all you have to do is, if you're not skilled, is you have to encourage, because we always have somebody that is on the trip that can demonstrate everything. So you're encouraging your children, your students, your campers. You're encouraging them. Then we go into stations, and this is where a little technical things come in, but we have structured it that we have different stations that don't take one station that takes no basketball IQ, one station that takes minimal basketball IQ. I think the greatest example of that is we had a 59-year-old secretary at our church, and she had heard about what we were doing, had come and watched our Wednesday night program, and said, "Now, I've never been to a sporting event. I don't know anything about basketball, but I feel called to go on a mission trip." She's 59 years old, never been involved in sports at any level, and didn't know anything. And we developed what we now have, probably is one of our favorite stations, is the agility ladder, where you just put the agility ladder down and you teach them how to run through it. So we talked to her and said, okay, look, here's what we want you to do. So she watched the DVD or the video that we had. She marked out on her linoleum tile in her kitchen the ladder, and then she learned how to do that. She went on a trip. She led like 7 or 8 girls to the Lord on that trip, came home, was so excited, kept practicing, went back the next year, led several girls back to the Lord, and all because she was put in a position of succeeding. So the 4 components, again, mass ball handling, we have stations, then we do competitions and contests. All you got to be able to do on that is count. If you can count, you can do it. You can run the contest and competitions. And then the 4th component is sharing your story. And so the lead coach will stand up, will share the thought of the day for about 15 minutes, then you will sit with your group of 7, 8, 9, 10 kids, and you will share your story. And so if you can do those things, you're qualified to go on a trip.
Let's talk a little bit about how you're connected to Waco and Baylor. So obviously you're going overseas, you've got a global call, but you also have some unique ways that you're embedded in the community here. What does that look like for you?
So for us right now, I would say prominently, most prominently, we do our Wednesday night activities at my church and another church within the city. And I would say that of that, like in our program, we've been doing it for 11 years now. 67% of our coaches come from Baylor University students. Then you add in faculty who also volunteer, and that number moves to 75%.
Wow.
I know at the sister church in the city, I think like 90% of the coaches are from Baylor University. So that's how hoops is tied in with the university. They've had us come and be at their missions fair as a presenting option for kids to be able to be involved in missions. And then when we go on trips, I would say probably 30 to 35% of our trip participants are either college students or Baylor faculty. So with Baylor, really, it is a huge part of who we are. And then in the Waco community, we have done things. Hoops for Hope has worked with Ironman and has done some just helping be involved. We've sponsored different basketball teams with just ways that Hoops for Hope can get our name out into the community. We have welcomed different schools will have volunteer opportunities. High schools will have volunteer opportunities, and so we're one of the organizations that they call and ask if they can send their students to come and help us out and do little tasks, stuffing bags, preparing, cleaning up, picking up things, and then my church, we have been tied for the last 20 years with a local elementary school that's just right down the street from us. And so Hoops has done, we do a camp every summer for the students of that elementary school. It's a free camp. We bring them in, and again, I would say probably 80% of our Wednesday night program comes from the Waco Public Schools. And so those are ways that we are involved in the Waco community through not just come and hear what we do, but also we go out into the community and try to be involved and invested. We'll support different organizations as well in their fundraising efforts or anything like that. We're not, hey, we're it. Y'all need to think that we are the big dog in this thing. Again, it goes back to our philosophy. We are merely an arm. We are an arm of what the body of Christ is doing in Waco, Texas, and we want to be involved in that.
I can vouch for that. When we put on a youth sports summit, you came and supported that and helped us build and grow that. So I appreciate how you model that in Waco.
Yes, sir.
Let's think about just scope and impact. So we're gonna focus on what's happening, and then we're gonna look at like what might be ahead for you. So if people are wondering, give us some numbers, give us some data, like try to make sense of what goes on right now for Hoops for Hope. What programs are you operating? How many people are involved? How many trips are you doing? That sort of thing. Just maybe paint a picture for what's happening right now.
Right. So from its inception till now, we've sent out over 16, we've sent out over, I would say, 2,500 coaches, and we've ministered to over 16,000 kids around the world in the years that we've been doing this, presenting the gospel to them. This year specifically, we just our Hoops Huddle program in Waco. We've had I would say 130 to 140 kids involved in both churches that are putting it on. And in the Waco area, and then we've had another church up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that's put on for another 40 to 50 kids. So somewhere between 150 to 200 kids have been impacted just in this school year. We sent out a team over spring break to Madagascar. There were over 110, 120 kids that came and were a part of that. And now, so from March, including that trip at spring break, through the summer, we will send out 12 different teams. Each team will have anywhere between 7 to 10 coaches. One group will probably have 15 coaches because they like a bigger team. And our estimated number of basketball, we estimate things on the number of basketballs that we'll have to give out because those things cost and we have to keep them in stock. We are estimating that about 1,200 basketballs will go out this summer through this year. And so those are the two major programs that we have going on. We have a golf tournament that's happening. We'll do a banquet in the fall. That's a fundraising type effort. We'll do a camp in Waco during the summer. We've been contacted even just in the last couple of days about doing a camp in Arkansas, doing a camp in Dallas, doing a camp in Houston. And those are all things that are in the work. And so numbers, I can give you best guess numbers right now, but it seems like the Lord is really doing some things to help broaden our scope.
And just to list out some trips you have this year so people can get a sense of places you're traveling. We have Madagascar, here in Texas, the Philippines, Dominican Republic, Brazil, Peru, Cuba, Alaska, Kenya, Ghana, Egypt, Costa Rica. What a global vision that is.
Again, that's going to the uttermost parts of the earth. And the Lord, what we're finding is that honestly, basketball on a global scale, soccer is the world's game, but basketball is really gaining foothold and gaining ground in each of these countries that we're going to. Every place that we're going, they're saying, we need more basketball, we need more basketball. And you list those out. I had to cut 4 or 5 trips that we just didn't have the manpower to go to. Had we had the manpower, we would have been able to send another. We've been able to go to Ethiopia and to Malawi. And there's different places that Mexico, Guatemala. There's places that we've said, love to be able to help you, but we don't have the manpower.
How about Hoops Huddle? Another key thing that you're doing, you've talked about this before, the weekly rhythms. Give us a sense of even the curriculum, the discipleship model. What is that like for campers as they go through it?
Yeah, so Hoops Huddle is really even a more intense discipleship evangelism. We have age-graded curriculum. We start at 3rd grade and end at 7th grade, but each grade level has their own curriculum that is written on that grade level, and it is written with unchurched people in mind. So we use very basic principles, and we simply try to build the rhythm of first of all, getting them in the door.
Yeah.
Okay, just getting them in the door. We'll go into the public school. We'll put out flyers. We'll do introductions. We will put out some social media posts. So the first goal is to get them in the door. Then the second goal is to at least corral them a little bit. Now these kids, because we're only getting them an hour and a half a week, they forget sometimes. Yeah. And so what our goal is we take a greater number of coaches. Our goal is to have a 1 coach to 2 camper ratio, okay? And it's purposeful on 2 different things. Number one, it helps corral and control. And again, that's where lots of our students, our coaches, don't have a basketball background, but they have a love for kids. Those are guys that we need, gals that we need. The ones that'll just come along because, again, they're kids. If there are kids on any, in any strata of life, they're going to be in the program. And so they come in. We try to have a 1 to 2 ratio, one coach to 2 campers, and in doing that, their goal is for the time they're on the court is just to encourage, help corral, help correct, help instruct. But then the meat of it is then they go into the classroom, and we have a curriculum, and it's I was a teacher by trade, and so it's more than you can fit into the 30 minutes that we allow. And the goal is always to get the lesson through rather than get through the lesson. And so we give them a wide range of things to talk about within that lesson. So there'll be a time, again, a master teacher type setting. There'll be a lead teacher who will teach for a few minutes, and then they'll break up. And those 2 kids that you're supposed to be aligned with, those are your 2 kids that you are sitting with every week, building that relationship with. And then one other assignment that we have for you is outside of the Wednesday night that we have you with the kids, you commit to calling those kids one time during the week. And when you're talking to third and fourth graders, fifth graders, sixth graders, you're not going to talk a long time. Now, it doesn't take a big time commitment. But one of the things that we get from the parents is my child looks so forward to Friday at 2 o'clock when they know they're going to get a phone call from their coach. They had one of them say, yeah, we were out shopping on Saturday and they said, oh, Mom, we got to go home because my phone's at home and coach is going to call me. So we got to get home. So, I mean, I had a parent come in and say, which one of these coaches is Coach so-and-so? I was like, oh, are you mad? And they said, no, I want to tell this coach what a difference he's made in my son's life. Just the consistency of doing that. So, and then we also have a hope and an expectation that kids who come through the program, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, that then they turn around and invest back into the program as eighth graders. They come back in, so it's the disciples making disciples. And we get generally 2 or 3 a year who will do that, come through the program, age out, but then come back in. Had one this year who came back and his brother was coming into the third grade, and he said, I want to come back in, I want to coach my little brother. And so, those, and one of the things that we do is we structure it to where if you come in and you start with a team, you're going to grow with that team every year. So if you start in the third grade, you're going to go to fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade with them. Then if you hit seventh grade, you come back in, you get a new crop of kids through the third grade. So kind of a continuation of helping build that relationship, because again, these kids face so much, they got to find people that they can trust. And so that's kind of how we do that.
Want to hear some stories, and then we'll close with vision and what's next and what might be ahead. So let's get some stories, though. You've shared a few of them, but I know there's so many you could tell. What are some stories that just stand out to you in your mind of where you've seen God moving and where you've seen change happen in the lives of people?
I think there's a couple of poster stories, we call them lead stories. There was a guy that was at Truett Seminary, and he was studying to be a pastor, but his kids were involved in upwards basketball, and he saw the impact that upward basketball, that sport made. And he felt the call of the Lord to go probably into sports ministry. Now, this was before FSI was around. And so he started asking around in the community, going, who can I talk to about sports ministry? So he was connected with me, and we sat down and we met and we began to talk about what he wanted to do. He had never had anything to do with basketball, has terrible basketball form, but he had a vision. And so we were able to source that vision. He said he thought he might be able to do a basketball ministry with 10 basketballs. We were able to source him with 50 and some other equipment. This was, I don't know, probably 14, 15 years ago. From that point, we were able to help him source a building of a basketball court where he could hold his camps. In the, I think it's like 13 years that he's been in ministry, he's seen well over 10,000 kids come through his program.
Wow.
And this was a guy that knew nothing about sports ministry, but through the model that we gave, he then got this vision of taking it through his country, Ghana. So he started going out into Ghana. Fellowship of Christian Athletes heard about him, got connected. He ended up becoming the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Africa president.
Wow.
He was, so he went from no understanding of sports through understanding sports ministry to being over FCA Africa. He since has scaled back and he's back to being FCA Ghana, but his passion is, I want to change my country through this model. And so he's taken our model of what we do, and he both the Hoops Huddle model and then the camp model, and he's implementing it in Ghana. Another story comes to my mind. my daughter-in-law was on a trip with us down into Peru. And we always preach, hey, our job is not to save anybody. Our job is to present the gospel, and we let God, through the power of the Holy Spirit, do the work. And so she went down. She had a group of girls, had some success, left. She came back the next year. And they opened the gates, and this little girl came running up to her and started pulling on her shirt, just speaking in Spanish. And my daughter-in-law didn't speak any Spanish, and so she got a translator over. And the translator, "Oh, what's up?" And she said, "Do you remember me?" And my daughter-in-law said, "Yeah, I remember you." And she said, "You coached me last year." And she said, "But you, more than that, you taught me about God." And she said, "I didn't believe you. But you challenged me on the last day. You challenged me to, when I went to bed every night, to say, is this real? Is this real?" And she said, every night for 10 months, I went to bed. And I said, is this real? And she said, finally, one night, I understood it was real. And I gave my life to Jesus. She said, I've been a Christian for 2 months now. And when I heard you were coming, I heard that Hoops for Hope was coming back, I just hoped you were here, you would be here so I could come and tell you that story.
Wow.
Okay. Locally, we had a young lady who, fifth grader, who showed up one night, and I was notified that she was in tears, and I went over. So what's going on? And she said, can we talk? And so we went off to the side. And she said, these boys were making fun of me. And I was like, okay, well, we can talk to them. And I said, is there anything else? And she kind of hung her head, and she looked, and she said, yeah, Coach Mark, she said, on the way home from school today, I got molested. And I said, let me tell you, with this information, I'm going to need to go to the proper authorities. And she said, oh, I told my daddy, the police have come. And so we began to process. And here was this little girl in the most awful situation. And she said, my daddy said, you don't have to go to Hoops Huddle tonight. And she looked back at her daddy and said, Daddy, I have to go to Hoops Huddle. Those people there love me. From somebody just sitting down with her, putting their arm around her, saying, good job, way to go, sitting in a small group with her and calling her on a regular basis. She was on the most horrific day of her life. She was able to say, somebody loves me and I'm going to go. Wow. Had a guy down on the Texas-Mexico border. This was several years ago. We were going down to do an outreach there. And we showed up, and everybody had on khaki pants and a white shirt. And they were all about 14, 15 years old. And I was like, man, what is the deal? And they said, well, your group this week, these are all kids that have been arrested, and the judge gave them two choices. They could go to jail, or they could come to the basketball camp. And so here they are. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, gang, our youth group was down there leading this deal. Well, there was one kid. If I said stand, he sat. If I said sit, he stood. If I said walk, he ran. If I said run, he'd walk. He had the pants on that hung down low. I kept saying, you got to keep your pants up. And I mean, he was obviously a ringleader. He disrupted everything. We went home the first night, and the coach in me just said, that kid needs to just go on to jail. And we're done. I'm done with him. And one of my coaches, Steve Swingler, said, Mark, we're here to minister to these kids. And I said, we're not going to minister to any of these kids with this guy around. And I said, well, I'm just going to tell him that he can't come back. And he said, let's give him one more chance. So we came back the next day. He wasn't any better. I mean, he was, and I kept looking at Steve going, man. Next thing I know, we're doing a drill, and everything's kind of peaceful. And I'm looking around going, what is going on? He's not in the gym, and neither is Steve. And ran through all the camp, came back in. What happened? His name was Frankie. What happened to Frankie? He said, well, Mark, let me just tell you. He said, I took him outside, and I took time to listen to him. He said, Mark, he's a 15-year-old, got arrested for stealing a car. His father died. His mother's in prison. His mother's boyfriend is just been arrested and is on trial to go to prison and will be convicted. His brother's in prison. His little brother, he's 15, his little brother just got arrested for stealing the car, and he got sent to juvenile. Said there's one person in his life that is normal, that is stable. And that's his grandfather. But his grandfather now has Alzheimer's, and he goes to see his grandfather, and his grandfather doesn't recognize him. And that's just happened in the last 2 weeks, that his grandfather no longer recognized him. He said he's got a lot going on. Let's let him stay. And I was like, okay. So anyway, I assigned Steve to stay with him. He was his project. We went through the whole week, and I began to notice a change in this kid. And so the last day we were going to present the gospel, and the kids are praying for him, and we, Lord, let Frankie come to faith in Christ and everything. And we come in, Frankie's not there. And everybody's like, where's Frankie? And no, everybody, oh, he's not here. And then they said, no, he's in the bathroom. And Frankie came out, and he had on gym shorts. And he had his pants that nobody could touch. He would not let anybody, had his pants all folded up nicely. And he walked up to me and said, here, you hold my pants and don't let anything happen to them so I can participate today. I'm like, breakthrough. So he participated. We start to present the gospel. Kids are cutting up and everything, and Frankie stands up. He goes, hey, y'all need to listen to this man. He's telling the truth. I gave my life to Jesus. Y'all need to too.
Wow.
I mean, I was going to kick him out. Now I'm going to be celebrating in heaven forever. The power of sport and faith and faithfulness of the Holy Spirit and coaches to love and to encourage. Yeah.
Wow.
Let me see.
Let's get a couple more. Let's get a couple more here.
Let me.
We're bouncing around. How about we go to Kenya. Let's bounce over to Kenya. We got a story there that we can share.
Let me see which one of the Kenya stories. Let me see here.
Do a little dirt court story.
Oh yeah, the dirt court. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Cut. Kenya. So we sent a team to Kenya, and we were like, okay, so are you gonna, you got a court for us? And yeah, we got a court for you. So our team leader shows up, and in the morning session they had a nice court and everything. And so now in the afternoon session we're going to go to a poorer section, and that was the one we had said, now do you have the court? And they were like, yeah, we've got the court. Well, they show up, and the court is a scraped dirt field. That's it. No lines, rocks, chunks of rocks everywhere. Red clay, red dirt. I mean, you dribble the ball and it'd go flying this way, flying that way. Every day, the coaches had to start the camp by lining everybody up, walking across the court, picking up rocks, just so they could have camp. But those kids thought it was the NBA Finals. I mean, they never had anybody care for them. It was what in the United States we would call a project. It was one of the projects. It was one of the poorer projects. They have continued the ministry that we started with these kids, and continued to give them hope through the game of basketball. Wow. One down in Dominican Republic, we had a coach that came and was a translator for us in one of our camps, and his name was Willie. And he saw the power of the model of what we did. And in another city that he lived in a neighborhood where 90% of the girls by the time they were age 16 had been raped or molested. 90%. And he lived in this neighborhood. He had a daughter who knew all these girls. He was like, how can we make an impact with the gospel? He came and did our camp. He was a translator. He saw it, came back, and he said, if I can put together some girls, would you come and do a girls' camp for us? And so the next year we came down, we had 50 girls. We had probably another 50 sitting in the stands just from the size of the court. That was all we could fit. We had another 50 sitting in the stands going, we want to come in. One of the girls was kind of getting mad and getting upset, and Willie walked out on the court and said, if you don't straighten up, you're gone. We got these girls up. And so she straightened up really quickly. But from that came a club. Now he's got multiple teams. He's got multiple programs, and his is becoming like the opportunity for these girls to work through the issues that they face from the travesty that they faced in a safe environment with coaches that will help them not only on their basketball skills, but help them walk through just life issues.
That's a consistent theme you've shared are people who get involved and who build something that's not labeled Hoops for Hope, but it's doing the same work somewhere.
Exactly. You know, we want the gospel to go forward. We can share ideas, we'll share ideals, we'll share whatever we need to share to see the gospel go forward. It's not about Hoops for Hope. Now, I will say, Hoops for Hope is a tried and true model. Yeah. And there's no sense reinventing the wheel if you don't have to. We've been doing it 20 years, and we've found a niche that we feel like is a really successful niche. It's not about us. It's about what the Lord wants to do through the sport of basketball and through people who are willing to get out of the stands. So, my dream, if I could, dream a huge dream, it would be to say, you know what, the model that we have, go and make disciples into all of the world, and as you are going, you are in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. You're evangelizing and making disciples. That with that model, my dream would be kind of to follow the FCA model where they have chapters all over. If I could live long enough to see a dream fulfilled, there would be a FCA Waco, Hoop for Hope Waco, and just like there is an FCA Waco and Belton and Temple and Dallas and Fort Worth and Arkansas, and just spreading out. That would be a huge dream of mine. That'd be the long-term goal. The short-term goal would be again, like I told you earlier, we have so many more requests than what we can fill. So a short-term goal would be to get more churches on board that we could train to then go and minister. Either if they don't have missionaries, we've got places to send them. If they do have missionaries, they can go and take to their missionaries. But more churches on board, more people, more individuals getting on board with the fact that, I love Jesus, I love basketball, I love missions, I love kids. I want to put it all together.
How about as you think about this dream that God's given you and the resources it takes to move in that direction, if that's what God's going to make happen, how can someone partner? There's prayer, maybe they can volunteer, maybe there's financial resources. What are the ways that they can come alongside and support what you're trying to build?
Yeah, so number one is prayer. And that I know that can be a Sunday school answer, but prayer for wisdom. I need wisdom and discernment to know about, where do we go? Where do we say yes to? So the first action step is to pray. Pray individually, am I supposed to go? Am I supposed to introduce it to my church? Am I supposed to introduce it to my basketball team, to my club, to whatever? Pray, but then also pray that the Lord would make provision. So again, the number one need I have right now is I need people to go, and right now there's tough economic times, and so finances are a huge deal. Our trips run anywhere between $2,200 to $3,900, and that is with Hoops for Hope subsidizing already some of the trips. Our trips, it's not a great business model, but we subsidize the trips. We don't. It costs us more than what we charge, and so But our heart is. I mean, we do fundraisers, and so we have a banquet and we do golf tournaments. So that those funds come so that we can do that, so we can keep it as affordable as possible. So if people wanted to give toward a trip or toward a person, we have mechanisms to do that on our website. We have mechanisms to do that. Just through a deal called Managed Missions. If you go to our website, www.hoopsforhopeinternational.org. You can get on there, you can click on trips, or you can click on donate, and it will take you, if you're wanting to go on trips, it'll take you to a managed missions page. If you want to give, it'll take you to a place called Give Butter, and it will give you the opportunity to just sow into the ministry. So praying, going, or giving so that others could go, those would be the three main action steps. And again, if you're going to approach your church, your pastor, don't go in and say, hey, I've got a great idea that you need to implement. Pastor, I'm a local church guy. I am a local church guy. I understand the role of ministers. Everybody has a great idea and has a great idea for you to implement. And so if you feel so called, it would be, you can go to your pastor and you can say, I have something that I think we could benefit from as a church, and I'm willing to step into that gap and help lead.
Excellent. Well, any final thoughts as we wrap this up? We've heard about Hoops for Hope. We've heard about your story, where God has brought you. We've heard about basketball and Baylor and the role those have played in your life. What's maybe a final word of reflection for people to hear?
I think the final word would just simply be obey what God tells you to do. God delights in obedience, and I would challenge everybody. I would challenge everybody to look at what the Lord has equipped you to do, and look at what the Lord is calling you to do, and then follow through. The road to success is to obeying what God has called you to do. So that would be my deal: is you pray, you find out what God wants you to do, and then you step into it.
Excellent. This is Mark Wible. Really appreciate the conversation, Mark, and what you shared, and I'm excited about what's next for Hoops for Hope.
Amen. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.